everybody, Ben Wilmette here. I was just going to go over a couple of things with Zoom that we discovered this past week, some settings to turn on that are not necessarily on by default that can make your life a lot easier. This past week in the math department, we were trying to figure out some ways that we could annotate our slideshows that would be observable for our students in Zoom. We're running the problem of, when we normally present a slideshow on our smartboard, right, we would draw it on the smartboard. If we use the smartboard tools, that would be great and all, but those would not display on Zoom on the share screen. So we kind of came up with a variety of workarounds. PowerPoint has like a built-in annotation tool. There are a couple of other things, but nothing that really kind of was a catch-all, and it really met all the needs that we wanted, and was frankly easy. But we discovered right in the Zoom settings there's some stuff that we can use that kind of will suit the needs of any program that you might be wanting to annotate. So in the Zoom web app, I'm just going to sign in on their website, and I come to this page. Off to the left here, I have settings, which will pull up this big long list of settings. I would recommend going through this at some point, just to take 10-15 minutes, kind of like read each one, read the little descriptions, make sure it's set to how you actually want it, because there's a lot of things in here that I found are off by default, that are actually really useful tools. That said, a lot of the stuff in here is stuff that we don't really need to worry about. It's networking things and things that really we are kind of out of the realm of what we need to be worrying about as far as meeting the needs of our students. So I would just give this a flip through, make sure it suits your needs for however you're kind of wanting to operate your Zoom. But yeah, the one that I'm going to show you, if you click on over to the left here in Meeting Basic, it will scroll you right down pretty much where you want to be. You'll have to go a little bit further, depending on how much is showing up on your screen. And right here, there's this annotation, allow host participants to annotate and add information to shared screens by default. At least for me, this was turned off. Why? I have no idea. It's such a useful tool, but I would recommend that everybody has this turned on. To go with that, I would recommend having this checked, allow saving of shared screens with annotations, and the second option, only the user who is sharing can annotate, is a little bit different. You can decide if you want this turned on or off. This makes it so that, well, it's pretty self-explanatory. Only the user who's sharing can annotate. However, there are a couple of things in Zoom settings that we can play with that kind of give us a similar function to this, and in general are kind of more practical than just having this turned on all the time. If you have this turned on, then you'll run into scenarios where you can kind of never have your students draw on your Zoom, on your share screen. So if I'm presenting a slideshow, there are definitely scenarios where I might want my students to write on the screen or type on the screen in a similar way to how we in the past have had students come up to the board, show their work for a question in math class, right, and kind of have that collaborative work across students. So I'll get more into that and show you a couple of the settings that might work better for this. If you want to have this turned on, I'm sure that's fine. But there are definitely a couple other options when it comes to who can and can't annotate on your screen. So the big important part here, turn this on, and I would say have this checked. This is optional. Now, how this actually works and what's useful for, let's say I'm presenting this, right, and I have my slideshow. Here we go, right? I'm actually going to close out for just a second to load up a Zoom meeting. So I Zoom here, let's make a new meeting. There I am, hello. Yeah, sure, join with computer audio. Great. So I have my Zoom open. What I'm going to do is actually tab back to my slideshow. To present it, I want it to be full screen. I want to be drawing on this, not on the Google Slides site. Once this is full screen, the way to get back to Zoom, if you press the keys Alt and Tab on the screen, you'll get this little menu. That's all of the windows that you have open on your computer, right? So I can Alt Tab. If I just press it once, it's going to take me right back to whatever my last window was. So here it's just flipping between the slideshow, the Google Slides, slideshow, Google Slides, right? It always go back to whatever the last thing you had open was. If I hold Alt and press Tab, I can keep pressing Tab. I can just cycle through these. You can even actually select which one you want with your mouse. So I'm going to go to the Zoom, right? Then my slideshow is still full screened in the background of my computer. It's behind this Zoom window, right? Actually, if I move this, boom, there it is. So it's still full screened. I'm going to share screen now. I'm going to select that full screen slideshow, and boom, here we are. So normally, again, if it was on Smartboard using the Smartboard tools, it's great for everybody in the room, but kids on Zoom aren't going to see whatever I'm drawing here, right? Like 2 plus 2 equals 4 with Smartboard doesn't show up in Zoom. However, up here, what we just turned on is this Annotate tool. Gives us this little toolbar. You can actually move it, get it out of the way of the information on our slide. And this has a whole bunch of things. Most of it is pretty self-explanatory. I'll just go over a couple of things and play around with it as much as you want, kind of figure out what tools are most useful for you. But the big one, there's this drawing tool, right? I can use this to poorly underline things. Now I can 2 plus 2 equals 4, and all the kids on Zoom can see that in the meeting on the share screen. Part I'm using my mouse to draw these, so not going to be the most accurate. A little bit of messy handwriting with the mouse, but we'll get the point across. So we have all different colors. The big thing, like I said, is this draw tool. It's just the pen here. However, right below it, this is a highlighter. So I can highlight informations, right? Perpendicular might be a key part of this definition. The shape tools here are mostly pretty self-explanatory. This is just a line tool. This makes a box, a circle. The ones below them are a little bit different though. The dotted in ones, the gradient ones, these are basically giant highlighters or shape highlighters. So if I have that selected, I can highlight a whole section quick and easily. Same with the circle, and then these are just filled in blocks. So if I want to block off a piece of text, I could do something like this. I could even make in fill in the blanks, and these can actually be moved. In fact, everything can be moved, stretched, and kind of played with using the select tool. You can also add text, so I could even block that out and then add white text over it. This is hello, and that's not what was there, but you get the idea of how you can kind of combine a lot of these tools to kind of suit your needs. Stamps, so there's a couple little shapes that you can just click to get quick little things on there. Spotlight, so this is kind of like the pointer tool that's in Google Slides, and yeah, I would just recommend get this working. You can hop into a Zoom meeting with yourself, just share the screen, and kind of play around with the tools, right? Now, the other thing to go over, actually close that for a second. I want to kind of jump back to this setting right here. Only the user who's sharing can annotate. Reason to turn that off, or by default what having this turned off allows is anybody in the Zoom meeting can annotate, can use that annotations tool on whatever screen is being shared. So if a screen is being shared, right, I'm sharing my my slideshow. I will get back to doing that. All of my students can use the annotation tool and draw on this, right? And I want to say, in general, while you're presenting a lesson, that's probably not what you want, right? You don't want all of your students just doodling all over, the bisector theorems here while you're trying to explain them. However, there are definitely situations where you do want students to be able to draw on the screen, right? Maybe I have, these 3 problems up, and I want 3 different students to kind of work through them, right? And I want to say, okay, put your work, somebody put their work right here, somebody put their work here. You can put your work on the screen. We can, as a class, kind of correct each other's work, just like, in the way that we kind of have operated in past, students coming up to show their work on the board, right? It can serve a similar function to that. Not quite the same, but similar at least. And I would say even more importantly, if you have students working in breakout rooms, the ability for one of those students to maybe share screen with an assignment, but have other students kind of contribute and showing their work with that, instead of just having only that one student being able to write on their screen. There's definitely situations where you kind of want people other than the person sharing their screen to be able to draw. So, kind of a long-winded segue into it. Those settings are right here under More. So there's 2 settings here that are kind of relevant to this. One is show names of annotators. I would have this toggled all the time if you can. So it says hide names of annotators. This will make it so that you can see who's drawing or making shapes on your screen. I don't believe it shows you your own name unless I have done something wrong with the setting, but it will show anybody that is not you who has done the drawings. I haven't tested it, but I believe it might even show the students. It would have something, it shows a little thing off to the side here that would say Mr. O, or I guess my name right now is Benjamin Wilmette, has created these annotations. I believe it's like a small, pretty out of the way little marking, but it could help you if you have those settings on, or you forget to turn something on or off, and kids start drawing on your screen. You can see who's drawing, right? So it's just a generally practical thing to have turned on. Again, one of Zoom's things that's turned off by default, but seems useful kind of all the time. And then the more important one is right here, disable participants' annotations, which turns into allow participants to annotate. So if you're presenting, right, when you initially pull your Zoom meeting up, I would just go on and hit disable participants, the disable button, so that your kids can't be drawing on the screen while you're kind of working through the slides. But then if you get to a point where, I want my kids to kind of work through these problems, right, maybe it's in pairs or whatever, I can go in and hit, allow participants to annotate, and now they can all kind of annotate on this same slide and kind of work on things that way. A little bit long-winded, but I hope that that kind of is practical for you all. I'm going to close that out. Really just that annotation tool has a lot of uses, and I would again recommend kind of flipping through the settings here and finding if there are any other tools that might be useful for you and how you want to operate your Zoom meetings, because there's a lot of things in here that are definitely useful. So yeah, that about covers it. Have a great day.